where you're more of an attack on the ground team, and then just let Riley pick his opportunities to be able to make plays down the field?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, we came back after Maryland, and me being hard-headed. I mean, we were just going to run the football at Miami. We were going to get back to running the ball. We got to be a little more diverse. We can't just run the football. But I think that's what we know that Riley can do it. If he had a supporting cast, we could throw the ball as much as we want to and be really successful doing it. But I think for us, we've got to always realize that we got to be somewhat balanced and not let anybody know we're just going to throw the football or we're just going to run the football. Just throwing it in the answer and just running it's not the answer. But you got to be careful that you don't get so hard-headed about, tough guy stuff and we're going to run the ball and we're going to cram the football and all that kind of stuff, and you forget that you got Riley Skinner sitting back there. So our challenge, Lobo's challenge, our offensive coach's challenge is to be better at running the football, but don't waste Riley Skinner.
The language of football was at Colts camp last year, and they had, I think it was a defensive scheme called Galin. I'm wondering, without giving anything away, what's the strangest play name you use now or have used? Can you just talk about the language that you use in your football team?
Well, what you do in the language with your football team, you try to come up with terms that when the kids hear the term, it means something to them, and that changes every year. I mean, you have certain blitzes on defense. You call them different things from year to year. Yeah, absolutely. Some of them are kind of bread and butter stuff, and they hang on. But I think most coaches, want to mix up their terminology a little bit. I mean, you wouldn't want. If you're playing, especially teams in your division, if you're playing them every year, you wouldn't want every time you say a certain thing for them to know exactly what you're doing. We try to mix numbers with words. Sometimes we call play by number, and sometimes we call it by words, so that if we're at the line of scrimmage running no huddle, we've got different ways to call the same play. But it gets to be ridiculous sometimes. I mean, sometimes you need an encyclopedia to figure out all the different things that you're doing. So you can try to be so secretive and so cute that you screw everybody up, including the coaches. So you got to be careful with that stuff.
Do you have what's your equivalent of Gandhi?
Of Gandhi? I couldn't tell you what our equivalent of Gandhi would be, but generally there would be. If you used a term like that, it would have to mean something to somebody. It may be that you're pulling, on offense. It may be that you're pulling the guards. You may have some kind of a scheme that starts with a G and use Gandhi instead of that term because you want the kids to recognize it starts with a G. You may, instead of left, you may use, West Coast, East Coast, left being west, right being east, you may direct your defense that way, east and west, so you're not just standing going right, and everybody, hey, they're all going right, stuff like that. So you just figure out ways every year to try to not be too complicated, but at the same time not give away everything you're doing by the words you're using.
What is the mix that you foresee going into practice the way you tail backs?
Lennox, I had a talk with Kevin Harris at the end of spring practice. I felt Kevin deserved to be the number one tailback. Had the great game against Vanderbilt and then came back and had a great game in the bowl game against Navy. But I really thought at the end of spring, I thought Josh Adams probably had the best spring. I thought Pendergrass was probably second best, and Kevin was probably third best. That doesn't mean I'm going to change the order. I think right now Kevin's still the guy coming back as a senior because he earned it in games. But he knows that those other two were healthy this spring, and if we had to go into a game right now, I think all three kids would play. if we had to do it today, Kevin Harris would probably start simply because of what he showed us in the 2 games. But from what happened this spring, I thought, Josh was probably the top guy in the spring with Brandon second and Kevin third. So I think if we went right now, Mitch would probably roll all 3 of them. It'd probably be a series at a time or a couple series for each kid.
Do you see anybody else, the younger guys?
I don't think so. Not right now. It could
Crazy
happen.
crowd.
It is. We've got some good young players, and we've got a couple kids that can can really run. But those 3 guys, what I liked this spring, and we'll see how it goes. I didn't think those guys were very tough last year, and I thought this spring I just saw some really mature guys. Looked like we had guys that had gained in toughness. It just looked like we were a little bit tougher group at running back, and that's what I didn't feel like we had last year. I thought we were kind of cute last year, and this spring I thought we really had some good solid running backs.